The Animal Central. Author's note: as many of the stories in this book are about man-eating tigers, it is perhaps desirable to explain why these animals develop man-eating tendencies. A man-eating tiger is a tiger that has been compelled through stress of circumstances beyond its control to adopt a diet alien to it. The stress of circumstances is, in 9 cases out of 10, wounds, and in the 10th case, old age. The wound that has caused a particular tiger to take to man-eating might be the result of carelessly fired shots and failure to follow up and recover the wounded animals, or be the result of tiger having lost its temper when killing a porcupine. Human beings are not the natural prey of tigers, and it is only when tigers have been incapacitated through wounds or old age that, in order to live, they are compelled to take to a diet of human flesh. A tiger, when killing its natural prey, which it does either by stalking or lying in wait for it, depends for the success of its speed attacks and to a lesser extent on the condition of its teeth and claws. When, therefore, a tiger is suffering from one or more painful wounds, or when its teeth are missing or defective and its claws worn down, and it is unable to catch the animals it has been accustomed to eating, it is driven by the necessity to kill human beings. The changeover from animal to human flesh is, I believe, in most cases, accidental. As an illustration of what I mean by accidental, I quote the case of Muktasar man-eating tigress. This tigress, a comparatively young animal, in an encounter with a porcupine, lost an eye and got some 50 quills, varying in length from 1 to 9 inches, embedded in the arm and under the pad of her right foreleg. Several of these quills, after striking a bone, had doubled back in the form of a U, the point and the broken off end being quite close together. Separating sores formed when she endeavored to extract the quills with her teeth, and while she was lying up in a thick patch of grass, starving and licking her wounds, a woman selected this particular patch of grass to cut as fodder for her cattle. At first, the tigress took no notice, but when the woman had cut the grass right up to where she was lying, the tigress struck once, the blow crushing in the woman's skull. Death was instantaneous, for when found the following day, she was grasping her sickle with one hand and holding a tuft of grass, which she was about to cut when struck with the other. Leaving the woman lying where she had fallen, the tigress limped off for a distance of over a mile and took refuge in a little hollow under a fallen tree. 2 days later, a man came to chip firewood off his fallen tree, and the tigress, who was lying on the far side, killed him. The man fell across the tree, and as he had removed his coat and shirt, and the tigress had clawed his back when killing him, it is possible that the smell of the blood trickling down his body as he hung across the bole of the tree first gave her the idea that he was something that she could satisfy her hunger with. However that may be, before leaving him she ate a small portion from his back. A day after she killed her third victim deliberately and without having received any provocation. Thereafter, she became an established man-eater and had killed 24 people before she was finally accounted for. A tiger on a fresh kill, or a wounded tiger, or a tigress with small cubs will occasionally kill human beings who disturb them. But these tigers cannot, by any stretch of imagination, be called man-eaters, though they are often so called. Personally, I would give a tiger the benefit of doubt once and once again, before classing it as a man-eater. And whenever possible, I would subject the alleged victim to a post-mortem before letting the kill go down on the records as the kill of a tiger or a leopard, as the case might be. This subject of post-mortem of human beings have alleged to have been killed by either tigers or leopards, or in the plains by wolves or hyenas, is of great importance. For though I refrain from giving instances, I know of cases where deaths have wrongly been ascribed to carnivora. It is a popular fallacy that all man-eaters are old and mangy, the mange being attributed to the excess of salt in human flesh. I am not competent to give any opinion on the relative quantity of salt in human or animal flesh, but I can, and I do, assert that a diet of a human flesh, so far from having an injurious effect on the coat of man-eaters, has quite the opposite effect, for all the man-eaters I have seen had remarkably fine coats. Another popular belief in connection with man-eaters is that the cubs of these animals automatically become man-eaters. This is quite a reasonable supposition, but it is not borne out by actual facts. And the reason why the cubs of a man-eater do not themselves become a man-eater is that human beings are not the natural prey of tigers or of leopards. A cub will eat whatever its mother provides, and I have even known of tiger cubs assisting their mothers to kill human beings, but I do not know of a single instance of a cub, after it had left the protection of its parent, or after that parents had been killed, taking to killing human beings. In the case of human beings killed by carnivore, the doubt is often expressed as to whether the animal responsible for the kill is a tiger or a leopard. As a general rule, to which I have seen no exceptions, tigers are responsible for all kills that take place in daylight, and leopards are responsible for all the kills that take place in the dark. Both animals are semi-nocturnal forest dwellers that have much the same habitats, employ similar methods of killing, and both are capable of carrying their human victims for long distances. It would be natural, therefore, to expect them to hunt at the same hours, and that they do not do so is due to the difference in courage of the two animals. When a tiger becomes a man-eater, it loses all fear of human beings, and as human beings move about freely in the day than they do at the night, it is able to secure its victims during daylight hours, and there is no necessity for it to visit their habitations at night. A leopard, on the other hand, even after it has killed scores of human beings, never loses its fear of man, and it is unwilling to face up to human beings in daylight. It secures its victims when they are moving about at night or by breaking into the houses at night. Owing to these characteristics of two animals, namely that one loses its fear of human beings and kills in the daylight, while the other retains its fear and kills in the dark. Man-eating tigers are easier to shoot than man-eating leopards. The frequency with which a man-eating tiger kills depends on A. the supply of natural food in the area in which it is operating, B. the nature of the disability which has caused it to become a man-eater, and C. whether it is a male or a female with cubs. Those of us who lack the opportunity of forming our own opinion on any particular subject are apt to accept the opinion of others. And in no case is this more apparent than in the case of tigers. Here I do not refer to man-eaters in particular, but to tigers in general. The author who first used the words as cruel as a tiger and as bloodthirsty as a tiger when attempting to emphasize the evil character of the villain of his piece not only showed a lamentable ignorance of the animal he defamed, but coined phrases which have come into universal circulation and which are mainly responsible for the wrong opinion of tigers held by all except that very small proportion of the public who have the opportunity of forming their own opinions. When I see the expression as cruel as a tiger and as bloodthirsty as a tiger in print, I think of a small boy armed with an old muzzle-loading gun, the right barrel of which was split for 6 inches of its length, and the stock barrel of which were kept from falling apart by lashing of brass wire, wandering through the jungles of the Terai and Bhabar in the days when there were 10 tigers to every one that now survives. Sleeping anywhere he happened to be when the night came, with a small fire to give him company and warmth, weakened at intervals by the calling of tigers, sometimes in the distance, at other times near at hand, throwing another stick on the fire and turning over and continuing his interrupted sleep without one thought of unease. Knowing from his own short experience and from what others who like himself had spent their days in jungles had told him, that a tiger, unless molested, would do no harm. Or during daylight hours, avoiding any tiger he saw, and when that was not possible, standing perfectly still until it had passed and gone before continuing on his way. And I think of him on one occasion stalking half a dozen jungle fowl that were feeding in the open, and on creeping up to a plum bush and standing up to peer over, and the bush heaving and a tiger walking out on the far side, and on clearing the bush, turning round, looking at the boy with an expression on his face which said as clearly as any words, "Hello kid, what the hell are you doing here?" And receiving no answer, turning round and walking away very slowly without once looking back. And then again, I think of tens of thousands of men, women and children who, while working in the forest or cutting grass or collecting dry sticks, pass day after day close to where tigers are lying up, and who, when they return safely to their homes, do not even know that they have been under the observation of this so-called cruel and bloodthirsty animal. Half a century has rolled by since the day the tiger walked out of the plum bush. The latter 32 years of which have been spent in the more or less regular pursuit of man-eaters, and those sights have been seen which would have caused a stone to weep. I have not seen a case where a tiger has been deliberately cruel or where it has been bloodthirsty to the extent that it has killed, without provocation, more than it has needed to satisfy its hunger or the hunger of its cubs. A tiger's function in the scheme of things is to help maintain the balance in nature, and if, on rare occasions, when driven by dire necessity, he kills a human being, or when his natural food has been ruthlessly exterminated by man, he kills 2% of the cattle he is alleged to have killed. It is not fair that for these acts, a whole species should be branded as being cruel and bloodthirsty. Sportsmen are admittedly conservative, the reason being that it has taken them to form their own opinions, and as each individual has a different point of view, it is only natural that opinions should differ on minor, or even in some cases on major points. And for this reason, I do not flatter myself that all the opinions I have expressed will meet with universal agreement. There is, however, one point on which I am convinced that all sportsmen, no matter whether their viewpoint has been up on a platform or on a tree, the back of an elephant, or on their own, they will agree with me, and that is that a tiger is a large-hearted gentleman with boundless courage, and that when he is exterminated, he will be unless public opinion rallies to his support. India will be the poorer by having lost their finest of fauna. Leopards, unlike tigers, are to a certain extent scavengers and become man-eaters by acquiring a taste of human flesh when unrestricted slaughter of the game has deprived them of their natural food. The dwellers in our hills are predominantly Hindus, and as such cremate their dead. The cremation invariably takes place on the banks of a stream or river in order that the ashes may be washed down the Ganga river and eventually into the sea. As most of the villages are situated high up on the hills, while the streams or rivers are in many cases miles away down in the valleys, it will be realized that a funeral entails a considerable tax on the manpower of a small community when, in addition to the carrying party, labor has to be provided to collect and carry the fuel needed for the cremation. In normal times, these rites are carried out very effectively, but when the disease, in epidemic form, sweeps through the hills and the inhabitants die faster than they can be disposed of, a very simple rite, which consists of placing a live coal in the mouth of the deceased, is performed in the village, and the body is then carried to the edge of the hill and cast into the valley below. A leopard in an area in which his natural food is scarce, finding these bodies, very soon acquires a taste for human flesh, and when the disease dies down and normal conditions are established again, he very naturally, on finding his food supply cut off, takes to killing human beings. Of the two man-eating leopards of Kumaon, which between them killed 525 human beings, one followed on the heels of a very severe outbreak of cholera, while the other followed the mysterious disease which swept through India in 1918 and was called war fever. Thanks for listening and subscribe to our YouTube channel.